Okay, this is primary source number 5. Prince Clement von Metternich was an Austrian diplomat. You have to kind of remember that by 1815, Europe had been exhausted by over a decade of Napoleonic wars. And the revolutionary ideas weren't just coming from the outside, but the ideas of liberty, fraternity, and equality were really weakening monarchies and the legitimacy of monarchies from Russia all the way into from Spain and England, primarily in the continent. So, what Metternich is attempting to do as he meets with the leading diplomats of the great states of Europe was how could they balance the power of Europe so that as not to have another terrible European war? How could they create stability? How can they put the revolutionary genie back in the bottle? And how would they be able to keep society from again collapsing in revolution? He says the first principle to be followed by monarchs, united as they are by the coincidence of their desires and opinions, should be that the mainstay of the stability of political institutions against the disorganized excitement which has taken possession of men's minds. That's really what we're talking about. The disorganized excitement which has taken possession of men's minds. Revolutionary fervor had really kind of fired the armies of Napoleon and made his ideas very popular. So, how could you create stability where people will again live in peace without the stirrings of revolution that had rocked France and eventually most of the rest of Europe? So, Metternich again is going to, as you read, was the architect of what we would call the concert of Europe, and that as European states that generally more or less had a common idea of how to keep peace and stability, and the fearfulness of nationalism and excited masses of people who would heed the call of a Napoleonic figure is something that people like Metternich were really eager to be able to stop. Now, more or less, it was successful. There would not be a greater European war until 1914, almost 100 years after they met at Vienna. If you would want to compare that, the Treaty of Versailles, which was signed in 1918, didn't last really 20 years of European peace. So you'll see that in many cases, Vienna, for all its failures, did achieve a sense of peace, but it held a lid on nationalism that would eventually explode in 1914. So take a look and see what his arguments are and how governments could work together and what philosophy should drive stability to keep another greater European war from breaking out. There's one they just recovered from.